and people say, do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no.
Yeah.
Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself. You should, if you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, like, I don't think you need to worry about this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
But there's a lot of jobs that will tell you need to have this.
Well, that's what's starting to happen now.
People are worried about them doing it for their children. And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
There's that you might have to have your children vaccinated. And, you know, I can tell you as someone who's both my children got the virus, it was nothing. I mean, I hate to say that. If someone's children died from this, I'm very sorry that happened. I'm not in any way diminishing that. But I'm saying the personal experience that my children had with COVID was nothing. One of the kids had a headache. The other one didn't feel good for a couple days.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, I mean, not feel good, like no big deal. No coughing,
right.
no achy, no like in agony. There was none of that. It was very mild. It was akin to them getting a cold.
Yeah, and you can have this thing where it's like you were saying, this virtue signaling and this kind of like theatrical display of I get the vaccine, what a good person I am, I care about everyone. But you're like, look, my daughter's a lot younger than your kids, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not injecting my daughter with something to fucking virtue signal. Right. Like, I'm not doing that. Right. If there's something that she's of no risk, statistically has no risk from, right. I'm sorry, I'm not taking any experiment on her in that. And that's my attitude toward it.
But it's amazing that that's controversial.
Yeah.
That even saying that I'm not going to inject my child with the vaccine is controversial.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because, again, we are not talking about even the flu that we just found out killed 22,000 people last year. We're not talking about that.
Right.
We're talking about something that is not statistically dangerous for children. But yet people still want you to get your child vaccinated, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, you should be vaccinated if you are vulnerable.
I'm not even sure exactly where to start with this, other than to tell you that this is Joe Rogan, superstar podcaster with the $100 million podcast on Spotify, the very same Spotify that most of you probably subscribe to. So you're help subsidizing this just like I am. And I know he sounds, he sounds reasonable. He sounds calm. He sounds measured, but he's spreading so much disinformation in this one clip. I don't really know where to begin. Let me start with this. There are young people who have died. There are children who have died of COVID-19. There are young people, more and more young people are getting sick severely and are entering into the hospital as a result of catching COVID-19. We still don't know the long-term ramifications of COVID-19. There are people who are struggling with long-term effects of COVID-19, whose lives have fundamentally changed because they have these lingering conditions as a result of COVID-19. There are young people who have died of sudden seizures and different side effects, strokes. There are young people who have died of strokes as a result of COVID-19, but yet Joe Rogan has just told his millions of listeners who listen to him every single day that if you're young, don't worry about it. The other thing that's wrong, it's not about it, it's more about in their mind, this group of people, this group of libertarian style thinkers. It is more egregious for you to be asked by the government or by anybody for that matter to do something. Because to them, that's anathema. That is the absolute worst thing in the world, as evidenced by your guy who was sitting across from him, who said, across from Joe Rogan, who said that this was akin to virtue signaling. People who get the vaccine are basically virtue signaling. And I'm like, no, maybe they're just trying to engage in self-preservation. Maybe people actually want to live, because the odds of you dying from the vaccine are astronomically lower than the odds of you dying from COVID-19. It's the same for adults, young adults, teenagers, children. We don't even know. We haven't even finished the trials. This is the other thing. We haven't even finished the trials for the children's vaccine. And so they are preemptively discouraging parents from getting their children vaccinated when we have we don't even have the data yet as to how effective it is, how risky it is. We have none of that, but they just know that there's something fundamentally wrong with you trying to virtue signal as a result of saying, I got the vaccine and I'm a good person. No, I got the first shot of the vaccine. I'm getting ready to get the second one because I want to live and I don't want the odds. The number one reason I changed, and most people in this country changed their lives drastically, it's because we didn't want to take a 1% or a 0.1% chance of catching it and giving it to our children. And here they're saying, oh, it's okay. Your children, they could catch it. It's nothing serious because it was just a cough. It was just, no headache, no sneezing, no running nose, none of that. This is what Joe Rogan is saying. And I'm like, the other option was to quarantine, self-quarantine, to wear a mask wherever you go, to avoid public places, to avoid crowds, to avoid. The other option was to protect your children from getting it in the first place. Okay? That's the fundamental difference. What we're saying is, if we can prevent our children and ourselves from getting it in the first place, it is worth the discomfort of having quarantine since February 27th of last year, right? And if the odds of getting the vaccine, if the odds of dying from the vaccine are astronomically lower, meaning that they're not even comparable. It's not even worth putting in the same sentence. And we still have yet to get the data on what it is for children. Why are we even having this conversation? You know why? Because there's money. And I don't know if this is why Joe Rogan is doing it, but I can tell you that there's money in the anti-vax conversation. Anyone who can go out and be an anti-vaxxer, you get support. There's political posturing in it. The Republican Party, they're standing by that. Libertarians, oh, we don't want the government to ask us to do anything. Wearing a mask is the worst thing that we could have ever asked these people to do, not dying from COVID-19, right? And then the other thing he said, I don't want to belabor this too long, but he said, we just found out 22,000 people died of the flu last year. My dude, 500,000 people died of COVID-19 last year. Joe Rogan. I mean, I started off as a math major and I dropped out of math and went to economics, but I'm pretty sure 500,000 is a lot bigger than the 22,000 people who died of the flu. So please tell me which one is worse. And then the other guy, I just got to go back to this virtue signaling thing, because to them, that is the worst. Virtue signaling is worse than dying to them. It's worse. Oh, I'm not going to inject. This is what his guest, I don't know who that guy was, but this is what his guest said. I'm not going to inject my kids with something to virtue signal. No, inject them with a vaccine that has been proven scientifically safe. We're waiting on the data. We're waiting on the trials. But once you get the data, why not inject them with something that is going to prevent them from getting something that is far worse than the side effects of the vaccine itself? Has nothing to do with trying to signify to the world that we're good people. It has everything to do with trying to protect our children and protect ourselves. But for them, our act of trying to protect ourselves is signifying. It's virtue signaling. I don't know what to do with this generation of ignorance that is being passed as its own version of wokeness. It's being passed off as its own virtue, its own version, rather, of intelligence. But they sat there together, the two of them, pretending to be the height of intelligence in terms of their conversation. And they did nothing but spewed ridiculousness that will, with the number of listeners that Joe Rogan has, there's a possibility somebody could die as a result of his stupidity. My goodness. This is, yeah.